Hi everyone, good evening, and thank you for joining tonight's international conference in integrative medicine, yoga and Ayurveda for cancer, organized by Union Yoga Ayurveda. My name is Senika, and I will be the moderator for tonight's call. We are very fortunate to have some unique speakers and specialist speakers for our conference. Our guest speaker for tonight is Dr. Shreyas Salmidas, and he is a consultant Ayurvedic obstetrician and gynecologist in South India who specializes in conducting normal delivery using integrated approach. Also, a Garbha Samskara expert, that is the preconceptional and antenatal care. He is an associate professor in the Department of PG Studies in Prasuti Tantra and Sri Roga, RGES Ayurvedic Medical College, Ron, Karnataka, India. He is the academic director, Dockford Ayus. And tonight's topic is the Ayurveda for preventive and palliative care in gynae oncology. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Shreyas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Millie. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaste, everybody. It's indeed a great privilege and a matter of honor to be a keynote speaker in the International Conference in Integrative Medicine 2020 Singapore. And amongst such an impeccable group of panelists who would be sharing their views on the most burning issue, that is cancer. And for this, I would like to congratulate Dr. Satyam Tripathi and also the CCRYN, Dr. Satyam Tripathi of Union Yoga Ayurveda Singapore and CCRYN for organizing such an great international event where we could share our ideas on integrative approach for curbing this cancer. So let me start with the slide share. Yes. So I would be talking on Ayurveda for preventive and palliative care in gynae oncology. So fortunately, we are in the month of September, which is also the gynecological awareness month. So these are the various bands which we generally use, right? So for all gynecological cancers, it is the purple band for ovarian cancer, the teal one for uterine or endometrium, it is the peach for cervical cancer, it is the pink, and for vulvar cancer, it is the violet, and for vaginal cancer, we use it blue. So this is about the bands where we are creating an awareness upon the preventive aspect. That was the main intention of using the bands, so that we impact the society with creating more awareness regarding this cancer. Yeah. So what basically Ayurveda has? To know what Ayurveda has, let me introduce today's topic with a quote of Albert Einstein stating, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler." The concept or the topic of gynecological cancer is a very vast subject. So I am trying to make it as simple as possible, but not simpler though. So what Ayurveda basically is, I will taken only two quotations which could say what Ayurveda is. Hita hitam sukham dukkam ayustasya hita hitam manam taccha yatroktam Ayurveda sa uchyate. So this is a quotation from the Charaka Samhita, which is a treatise which describes about Ayurveda. So there we have a reference of what Ayurveda basically is. So it is nothing but a system of medicine or a science of life where you have four concepts, which is hita, which is ahita, which is sukha, which is dukkha for the ayu. And the measurement of all these is Ayurveda. So whichever is conducive, hita, which is conducive to the body, which is not conducive, ahita, which pleases, which is giving sukha, which is not pleasing, displeased, or dukkha, which gives which something which is sad or which is not good. So that the measurement of all these is Ayurveda. You have another reference again from Charaka Samhita, prayojanam cha asya swastasya swastya rakshanam aturasya vikara prashamanam cha. So the main motto of Ayurveda is to maintain the health of the healthy and to prevent or to combat the disease or to cure. So basically, Ayurveda is something which has two concepts. One is prevention, maintaining a healthy state of both body and mind. Also, if there is any abnormality, treat the abnormality and bring it to normalcy. So this was the concept of the Ayurveda. So now I would be dealing with preventive care. So preventive care, what WHO defines preventive care. So it is disease prevention, which is understood as specific population-based and individual-based interventions for primary, that is early detection, prevention, aiming to minimize the burden of diseases and associated risk factors. That is, so basically, that which is preventive, which could be understood in two ways. One is primary prevention and secondary prevention. So what does primary prevention means? So it refers to actions which are aimed at avoiding the manifestation of a disease. So here I mentioned swastasya swastya rakshanam, to maintain the health. So it is mainly you avoid the manifestation of disease. So these are the actions taken to avert the occurrence of disease. So there is no disease. So this is primary prevention, like lifestyle change, sanitation. What is secondary prevention? Secondary prevention is something which deals with early detection when this improves the chance for positive health outcome. So these are the actions which are taken to stop or delay the progression of disease. And it is used to detect a disease at its earliest stages. Like cervical, screen the patients. We do a pap smear. We screen them and we can know once there is some result which we could think of which could harm the body, so we treat them. So we prevent further progression. So this is called as secondary prevention. So now what is palliative care? The World Health Organization defines palliative care as an approach that improves the quality of patients and their families facing the problems associated with life-threatening illness through the prevention and relief of suffering by means of early identification and impeccable assessment and of pain problems, like it could be physical, psychosocial, and spiritual. Now, how could we assess the patient's needs? So it has to be a holistic approach. So where a holistic approach like the physical, the psychological, the spiritual, and social. So this has to be, these are the things which has to be given care for. Like the physical dimension. So what are the physical dimensions? Like the performance status. You see the symptoms of that, the condition, the patient's nutrition, hydration, whether the physical safety up there. Then when we go for the psychological dimension, so there we go to see the emotions, cognition, mood, coping style, fear, dreams, that are shattered because of this serious illness. When you see the social dimension, it could be the loneliness, economy, where it could be very expensive for the condition to be treated, the caregivers and family burden if they have dependents, support network, house and patient's environment, the community environment. And when we see the spiritual dimension, so the spiritual dimension, it cannot be ignored, for it is what makes us human, like meaning of life and death, the religious beliefs, meaning of hope, multiple losses. So all these together is something which palliative care can give. So now let me talk something special about women, my subject proper. As I'm a gynecologist, I would be concentrating more on the gynecological aspects. So when a human being was made, there were 20 extra muscles, which we term as peshi in Ayurveda. So there were 20 extra muscles which a woman had, and the gynecological cancers mainly target these 20 extra muscles. Strinam tu vimshatir adhika dashatasam stanayor aikaikasmin pancha pancha iti yavane tasam parivruddhi apatyapate chatasra tasam prasrute abhyantarato mukhashrita bahya cha vritte dve garbhachidda samshrita tisra shukra artava praveshinya tisra eva. So 5 in each breast, making 10 extra, that is 5 in 2 breasts, 10, 4 in the vaginal passage, 3 near the cervix, and 3 for the entry of gametes. So probably the tubes, the endometrium, the tubes, endosalpinx, endometrium, all those things. So 2 endometriums and one endometrium, 2 endosalpinx, probably, or the ovaries where the gametes come also. So the main reproductive organs where the cancer could go into would be the cervix. So you can see the external os, the ectocervix, how the cervix is there, the uterus. So here you can find the lining that is the endometrium, internal lining. So here you find the uterine cancer in the endometrium. The ovaries, ovarian carcinoma, and the breast tissue. So in the breast, you can find the carcinoma also. So what is the incidence of cancer? So I would be mentioning about India here. So gynecological cancers have increased in India and are estimated to be around 182,602 by the year 2020, constituting about 30% of the total cancers among women in India. Among these, the cancer of the uterine cervix, followed by the ovary and corpus uteri, are the major contributors. So that is the reference from the journal. When we see in South Asia, Southeastern Asia, nearly around 30,000 women in the United States, in the West, are estimated to have died from gynecological cancers in 2014. Approximately 95,000 women are diagnosed with gynecological cancers each year. While improvements in screening and detection have been made for some of these diseases, most notably the cervical cancer, and still others such as ovarian cancer, which are diagnosed in the late stages of the disease, and long-term prognosis is poor. So now let me highlight you few points on each cancer. So taking with the cervical cancer. So what is cervical cancer? So cervical cancer is the preventable disease as it has a well-defined long pre-malignant phase, which can be detected by regular screening tests and follow-up. Unfortunately, most women in India are not aware about the screening. So it is a second most common cancer among women in India, and the risk factors could be smoking and giving birth to more than 7 children, having your first childbirth before 17 years, that is teenage pregnancies, and multiparity, more number of children, number of sexual partners, maximum number of sexual partners or more number of sexual partners, even that could be a risk factor for CA cervix. Early age of intercourse, having a weakened immune system. So if you have a very low immune system, probably that could also be a risk factor for CA cervix. So how does it manifest? So it may be a silent until advanced disease develop. So what do you find? So sometimes you experience a post-coital bleeding. After sex, there could be some amount of spotting or bleeding. So that's called as post-coital bleeding. Foul vaginal discharge, abnormal bleeding, unilateral leg swelling or pain, pelvic mass, pelvic pain, gross cervical lesion. So these could be clinical manifestations. So now, what is the burden of the disease? So more women in India die from cervical cancer than in any other country. New case of cervical cancer detected in India is around 96,922 every year. And deaths due to cervical cancer in India is around 60,078 per year. This is according to the reference in a journal which was published. So now what is uterine cancer? So commonly we call it as uterine cancer, but it is an endometrial carcinoma. So uterine cancer is also known as endometrial cancer, which is a malignant neoplastic growth of the uterine lining. So approximately 95% of these malignancies are carcinoma of the endometrium, and most of the women are more than 50 years, are above the age of 50 years. And 75% of the uterine cancer occur in the post-menopausal woman. And the incidence is highly dependent on age. So here I have staged into 1, 3, 4. I've taken the reference of stages. So basically in stage 1, it has spread to the muscle wall of the uterus. That is the endometrial. From there, it is just passed to the muscle. And stage 2, it has spread to the cervix. Stage 3, it has spread to the bowel or vagina, much lower and much deeper inside, with metastasis to the pelvic lymph nodes. It has, it has occupied the whole of pelvis. In stage 4, it has invaded the bladder mucosa. It has reached to another distant organ like lungs, inguinal, supraclavicular nodes, liver, bone. All these are affected. So what are the causes and risk factors? A history of exposure to unopposed estrogen is the cause in 75% of women, like nulliparity, that is not having children, obesity, liver diseases, infertility, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, history of pelvic radiation. These all could be some causes and risk factors. And how was it manifested? So there is pain during sexual act, dyspareunia, we call it as. There's painful coitus. There is low back pain. There's purulent genital discharge, some offensive, some abnormal discharge from the genital organ could be noticed. There is dysuria, sensation of urine. There is pelvic pain, weight loss, and change in the bladder and bowel habits. So these could be the clinical manifestations. Now, next is the ovarian cancer. So it is the cancer that forms in the tissue of the ovary, and it is called the overlooked disease or the silent killer. So in stage 1, this cancer is limited only to the ovaries. In stage 2, the growth involves one or both ovaries with pelvic extension. In stage 3, it has spread to the lymph nodes and other organs or other structures inside the abdominal cavity. And in stage 4, it has metastasis to distant sites. So what are the risk factors for ovarian cancer? Is again not having children, nulliparity, increasing age. So over the age of 50 years, this is another risk factor for ovarian CA. Persistent ovulation over time, like early menarche, high fat diets, first degree relative with ovarian carcinoma, again with genes that
यहाँ पे था ना
come,
वहाँ पे
late
नरेन
menopause after 55 years old, obesity, inherited use of perennial talcum powder or hygiene sprays, older than 30 years at the first pregnancy, and infertility. So these all could be some risk factors for ovarian carcinoma. So how does it manifest? So there would be pelvic discomfort or pain, persistent indigestion, gas, nausea, abdominal pressure, swelling, bloating, urinary urgency or burning with no infection, unexplained weight loss or gain, a palpable abdominal mass, changes in the menstrual pattern. There could be fatigue, vague abdominal pain, diarrhea or constipation, sometimes ascites, and back pain. So the ovarian carcinoma could manifest in these signs and symptoms. Now, lastly, with the breast cancer, so basically, here the cause or the risk factor could be something like a family history, having the history of breast carcinoma, increased breast density, gene mutation, prolonged use of oral contraceptives. And that could be a risk factor for breast carcinoma, late childbearing, hormone replacement therapy after menopause. Very, very important. The hormone replacement therapy after menopause is, again, precursors for most of the carcinomas in women. Early menstruation and late menopause, obesity, alcohol intake or tobacco. So these could be the risk factors for breast carcinoma. So now here you can see the stages of breast cancer. So stage 0, stage 1, you can find the lump there. Stage 2, it has progressed, gone to the axilla, near the axilla. Stage 3, reaching to the other breast also. And stage 4, where you can see it has gone distantly to the liver, to the lung, to the supraclavicular gland, to the bones, etc. So this is stage 4. So how do we know that there is breast cancer? So what are the warning signs? So here you find a lump in the breast or armpit. So basically there is a self breast examination, which most of the gynecologists teach you, or when you attend any seminars, so they teach you there, or when you go to a clinic, meet your doctor, your gynac might help you in the self breast examinations, or you can easily Google it also, self breast examination, and you can note that. So there would be a lump in the breast or an armpit, which has come all of a sudden. So normally there are few lumps which are very mobile. We call them as breast mouse, or the fibroadenoma or the fibrocysts, the small cysts, which is very normal to be. But if there is a big lump which is very hard and which is not moving, then it would be a warning sign. Then nipple discharge, if there is suddenly any discharge in the nipple, change in the breast appearance, itching on the breasts, swollen or red breasts, pain in the breast or chest area. Sometimes nipple will also become sensitive. So these could be the warning signs of breast cancer. So now let me go about what Ayurveda has told about cancer. So we know that cancer is something generally talked like, well, at this present era. So cancer is not something which is very new. So it is a disease which is mentioned in our ancient classics, like all our Samhitas, Charaka, Sushruta, Ashtanga, all the classical Ayurveda books has the mentioning of this condition called as Arbuda. We call it as Arbuda or cancer. So basically why this cancer came, the word that is derived from Greek, that is karkinos, meaning crab, which means an appearance of a large prominent veins around the growth, which is encircled like claws. So this is Greek word. So we call it as Karkata Arbuda. Arbuda is nothing but a mamsa, which is a muscle growth, which is a muscle mass. And we call it as Karkata Arbuda, which is like similar to crab. Karkata Arbuda, which is cancer. So there was reference of treating this Arbuda very successively. So there were probably, you don't find much reference stating about the deaths then, though it is mentioned as an asadhya, but it had chikitsa. The quality of life was much more better then. So the main treatment aspect which Ayurveda has for Arbuda is, basically there were three main things. One is Aushadhi Chikitsa, Shalya Chikitsa, and Anushastra Chikitsa. Aushadhi Chikitsa is that which is the treatment modalities using herbs. It could be either herbs or herbomineral preparations. Sthanika, which could be local application. Okay, local application of a paste of some herb, local application of a paste of some mineral or metal powder, incinerated metals. Anything could have been applied. That is called as Sthanika Aushadhi. And Sarvadaihika, which is internal medicine. You take the medicine in the form of a syrup. You take the medicine in form of a paste. You take the medicine in form of some juice, in some form of a paste again, or tablet, in form of some powder. You take them. So that is taking internally medicine, so that it acts on the target site, that is Arbuda. So this was Aushadha Chikitsa. And what is Shalya Chikitsa? Shalya Chikitsa, it's nothing but surgery. So then they used to remove it. The removal was Sakosha, along with the whole thing. Sakosha, the whole part was removed along with few healthy tissues also. Post which Anushastra Chikitsa was done. That is Agni Karma, Rakta Mokshana, and Kshara Chikitsa. Agni Karma is nothing but cauterization, heating. Once you remove the organ, you burn it off so that there is no regrowth again. So you burn the tissue, you make it more healthier, that the area you remove it off, you burn it so that there is no small remnant, no small nuclei of that abnormal tissue. So that is called Agni Karma. Rakta Mokshana, that is bloodletting. So there was bloodletting, which could remove the vitiated blood, which is one of the factors for this Arbuda. In gynecology, we generally consider all our carcinomas to be Raktarbuda. Okay, Raktarbuda, which is mainly because of the Rakta dosha. So bloodletting is again one option there. And Kshara Chikitsa. Kshara is something which is alkaline. So we have seen many references that alkalinity internally in any form is also very good. They say that they prevent carcinoma. So alkaline in the form of internal, alkaline in the form of application, anything would be better. So these were much prevalent in those days, in which they could successfully manage this condition called as Arbuda. So now I would be talking on something which is very, very, very important. That is the Chikitsa. Three types of Chikitsa which Ayurveda has, which is very relevant for carcinoma patients. That is the Daiva Vyapashraya, Yukti Vyapashraya, and Sattva Vajaya. So as depression is very common in carcinoma patients, the role of Sattva Vajaya, Daiva Vyapashraya, and Yukti Kruta treatment plays a very vital role. Okay, so here, when you say Sattva Vajaya, it is something which is improving the consciousness, improving the psyche of the patient. You deal with the Manas Vyapashraya. Daiva Vyapashraya is the same thing, where you do prayers, you sing the hymns, you devote, you sacrifice, you surrender to the Almighty, and that gives you a positive energy there. And Yukti Vyapashraya is something which you think upon your Yukti, that is a doctor. You think on your Yukti and you treat the disease. So there combination of all the three, that is Sattva-Vajaya, Daiva Vyapashraya, and Yukti Vyapashraya. So how do we apply this Ayurveda psychotherapy? Like the methodology, we have the 5 Vishayas of Manas, that is Chintya, Vicharya, Uhya, Dheya, and Sankalpa. Like Chintya, which focuses on the regulating the thought process. Vicharya, replacing the ideas. Uhya, channeling the presumptions. Dheya, polishing the objectives. And Sankalpa, proper guidance or advices for taking right decisions. So what are the domains of Sattva Vajaya Chikitsa? So here the psychotherapy or Sattva Vajaya, the domain is the Dhi, Dhairya, and Atma Vijnana. So Dhi, which is uplifting the intelligence, Dhairya, boosting the confidence and determination. You boost the confidence in the patient, stating that yes, you will get well, you are having this medicine, this will help you. Probably you are dealing with the quality of life. We know that we cannot probably treat the condition, but yes, certainly the quality of life could be improved by boosting the confidence. They would be expecting somebody to boost their confidence, and Dhairya does that. Atma Vijnana, stimulating the consciousness or setting self-realization. And which are these techniques like Jnana, Viveka, Dhairya, Smriti, Samadhi, which gives some insight-oriented approach, educative approach, supportive approach, cognitive approach. So what is the importance of Sattva Vajaya Chikitsa and Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa in cancer patient? So basically it is to improve the mental health, controlling the mana, decreasing the stress, which is very much there, which balances the emotional status, uplifts the intelligence, boosts the confidence and determination, and stimulate the consciousness, that is self-realization. So here I would be presenting you 4 cases. So these cases which I would be presenting is the work which was done by one of the senior most Ayurvedic obstetrician and gynecologist in India, so Dr. V.N.K. Usha. So madam is a senior most Ayurvedic obstetrician and gynecologist, and she had documented these 4 cases, which I would be presenting now in her book called as Kashyapi. So here the first case, we present a case of 40 years old female patient, moderately built bank employee with history of breast cancer since 3 years, which started as a breast lump with pain in 2008, and biopsy revealed 3rd stage breast carcinoma. Patient had undergone mastectomy with chemotherapy 3 years back. No history of diabetes. Hypertension was found and amenorrhea up to 2 years after chemotherapy, with scanty bleeding since 1 year. On examination, the right breast was removed with no scar or tenderness and normal skin. Left breast was normal with no mass seen. Nipple was normal in size and shape with no tenderness. All blood and urine investigations were normal with USG showing endometrial thickness of 8 mm. So this was a post-mastectomy case, and Ayurveda treatment was aimed and planned for prevention and non-recurrence of breast carcinoma. Okay, so here the main target was to prevent further progression and non-recurrence, and also to improve the quality of life of patient. Hence, the Ayurveda treatment was executed with Grantihara, Rasayana, and Balya Chikitsa. Patient was treated for 1 month and follow-up done for 4 years, once in every 6 months. So after 1 month of Ayurveda treatment, weakness was reduced and quality of life had improved. Patient was found to be healthy with no recurrence and any adverse side effects of the medicine. So here the conclusion was Ayurveda treatment can be incorporated as post therapy to prevent the breast carcinoma or Stanarbuda, and also in improving the quality of the life of the patient. So what was given was Grantihara. Grantihara, combination of medicines which is aimed or targeted to remove the uh, accumulation of doshas causing it as an arbuda or a cyst or a tumor. So those anti-tumor drugs mentioned in Ayurveda, there are a list of anti-tumor drugs like Kanchanara Gugulu. You have a lot more of herbo mineral preparations, which I would be explaining you. So these medicines were given. Rasayana again, which is Bhallataka Rasayana is indicated in case of breast carcinoma, and Balya Chikitsa. Balya is that which tones up, strengthening treatment. So this was given, and see, the quality of life was very much improved. 4 years, once follow-up was done once in every 6 months, the quality of life was improved. So this is one of the case which I could mention where Ayurveda treatment for post mastectomy, that is post surgery and after chemotherapy, this could be one option. Now case 2, present a case of 58-year-old female patient, complains of white discharge, backache and constipation since 2 months with no burning, micturition and itching. Patient had undergone radical hysterectomy followed by radiotherapy and approached our hospital for Ayurveda treatment post radiotherapy. No history of diabetes, hypertension, asthma. Initially, patient was treated by a male doctor who had not examined her vaginally, and after 6 months later was seen by a female gynecologist and diagnosed as having cervical carcinoma. On examination showed the following features, that is, per abdomen showed slight tenderness in the hypogastric region. Per vaginal examination showed anteverted uterus and bulky. The cervix examination demonstrated hypertrophied cervix, hard with irregular circumference, and pap smear showed well-identified malignant cells, and cervical punch biopsy also showed squamous cervical carcinoma. So the design here was, before administering Ayurveda treatment, patient was examined completely and given Ayurveda oral medications with Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa for 6 months, with follow-up once in 6 months up to 7 years. The significant change were seen in the health condition of the patient, and quality of life had improved with reduction in the intensity of the complaints by supporting the body physiology and healing the resultant morbidity with increase in the willpower and reduction of stress. So this study showed that Ayurveda treatment post radiotherapy with stage 2 and stage 3 cervical carcinoma was effective in improving the health condition of the patient, quality of life, and reduction in the intensity of the complaints. And therefore, Ayurveda treatment may be incorporated as an add-on in the management of Rakta case. So here the role of Ayurveda as an add-on, that is in cases of malignancy. So here this patient was given Grantihara, Rasayana, Balya Chikitsa along with Daiva Vyapashraya. So here the role of Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa comes. In this particular case, as she was of a Hindu religion, a particular hymn or a mantra was given to her. It is called as Namatraya Mantra or Namatraya Mantrastra. That is a weapon which was quoted in our Vedas. Namatraya Japa, that is which aims in treating the long chronic diseases, life-threatening diseases. For that, Namatraya Mantrastra was given, and she was asked to chant that as many times as and when possible, along with few water or medicated with those Namatraya. And medicated water, like you just keep that glass of water, pray with that mantra, and probably and give that. So that was something which was more on her psychology, improving her confidence in spiritual level also. So this study was on Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa. So next case 3, that is a patient gravida 2 para 2 approached with CIN, that is cervical intraepithelial neoplasia stage 2, positive report for Ayurveda treatment, who was unwilling for advised hysterectomy at the age of 37 years. So she was not willing for an hysterectomy because she was only 37 years and she had cervical intraepithelial neoplasia stage 2. So here it was treated with Ayurveda Kshara Chikitsa, and the patient was given Trifila Kvata Yoni Prakshalana. Here the local treatment was done and the application of Tankana and Apamarga Kshara. So these are alkali. I was mentioning about alkalis then. So alkali, the Kshara. Here the local application of that alkali on the cervical lesion was done, which was followed by dedouching, that is Panchavalkala Kvata, Trifala Kvata Prakshalana, and a medicated cotton pad was kept with Panchavalkala Kvata. Again, it is a decoction of 5 barks, medicated barks. This a pad, cotton, simple cotton gauze pad, which was dipped with this medicated decoction, was kept in the vagina from 7th day to 16th day of menstruation for 3 months. Entire period of the month, she was advised with Ayurveda oral medications like Chandra Prabhavati and Kanchanara Gugulu. And the result, post-procedure, the report was negative and 7-year observation showed no recurrence of lesion and a healthy cervix, which to conclude states, it is the cervical intraepithelial neoplasia can be effective treated with Ayurveda treatment. So another case 4. So here we present a case of 48-year-old female patient who complains of excessive bleeding vagina since 8 months. History of irregular bleeding with mucoid white discharge and bouts of blackish bleeding associated with backache and constipation was seen for 2 months. Had undergone conventional treatment for 8 months and later was referred to the higher center where she was diagnosed as 3rd grade 3 squamous cervical carcinoma and advised chemotherapy and radiotherapy. But the patient was not affordable and had developed low-grade vesicovaginal fistula, and she approached for Ayurveda treatment seeking symptomatic relief. So what better could be done here? So here we could improve her quality of life, right? So the patient was examined completely and given Ayurveda treatment for 1 month and found some relief with the symptoms. Only symptomatic relief was found with 1 month of medication, and found that after 1 month, the patient had expired as couldn't avail the treatment because of non-affordability. But that 1 month, she had a very good quality of life. So that which Ayurveda could offer, because everything is not that easy. The economic resources do matter there. She was not that okay for surgery, but something that 1 month, she had some symptomatic relief, which Ayurveda could offer there. So this study also shows that Ayurvedic treatment for stage 3 cervical carcinoma. So I'm not going to stage 1, stage 2. I'm talking here about the stage 3, much more advanced stage where this showed some symptomatic relief. The study gives an indication for doing more studies on the present subject and to show the changes with Ayurveda treatment that can be helpful for the society. So this was the main intention, and I have said few case studies. That is only I've presented 4 case studies where we have some positivity which Ayurveda can offer to the cancer patients. So now, what is the role of Ayurveda in cancer management? So here we can use Ayurveda as a prophylactic, as a palliative. Prophylactic is preventive, and palliative. Palliative again with all these spiritual dimension, social dimension, lifestyle, etc. Curative. So where we saw the application of alkalis, where there was there was cure of the cervical intraepithelial neoplasia stage 2. Supportive treatment for improving the quality of life, and some dietary advices like do's and don'ts. So this is what Ayurveda has to offer in cancer management. So as an adjuvant or co-therapy along with chemotherapy or radiotherapy, so this Ayurveda can be taken as an adjuvant therapy along with chemo and radio and post-surgery care. to minimize the side effects of these therapies. Generally, when you take, there is also in practice, we give them Triphala Kashaya Gandusha, which is, we ask them to gargle their mouth with the medicated decoction of Triphala. So even that will help in stomatitis because of the chemotherapy, post-radiation, etc. So to minimize the side effects, Ayurveda can come there. In reducing the therapeutic dose of various drugs used, as some studies on cow's urine. So various research articles we find on cow's urine for carcinoma can be helpful in targeting the specific tissue, as in some studies of nanoparticles of gold. So to slower the progress of cancer when chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or surgery is contraindicated due to many reasons and patients have no other choice, there Ayurveda can come. So Ayurveda also acts as the anti-tumor action, which it has in its herbs, herbomineral compounds. Many studies have been done. I have not quoted most of these studies, the research work. There are plenty of research works on Ayurveda with cancer. The cell protective activity of drugs prescribed in Rasayana therapy to improve the comfort and quality of life for individuals with cancer. So this is where Ayurveda can stand in the platform of cancer. So as adjuvant or co-therapy along with chemotherapy or radiotherapy, to protect the body from the side effects of chemo and radio, like alopecia, nausea, nail changes, constipation, anorexia, vomiting. These are few side effects of chemo and radio where you can use Ayurveda along with chemo and radio. The myelosuppression, one of the fatal toxicity of chemotherapy, led to delay in the scheduling of the chemo. In those patients who are receiving Ayurveda treatment along with the chemo, have also shown more regularity in maintaining the chemo. So these are research words which I have been taken from the research articles. There are more than 50 research works which have been carried out at MD and PhD level at on the cancer at various Ayurveda institutes, including the Gujarat Ayurveda University. Interestingly, Snehana Karma, that is intake of various medicated ghee or oil preparation in a classical way, a week or 10 days prior to chemo or radiotherapy, have also shown less toxic effects during radiotherapy or chemotherapy. Okay, so even this work has been proved, that is, you take a in a classical way some amount of medicated ghee, that will also help in preventing the toxic effects of radio and chemotherapy. So now I have mentioned few drugs. Probably you all might not know. A few doctors of Ayurveda could know these. So drugs for symptomatic relief during RT and CT, that is radiotherapy and chemotherapy. So for pain relief, we can give Guggulu preparations. You can also go for Swedana, that is fermentation. For nausea and vomiting, Suta Shekara Rasa, Chardi Repu Vati, Shavari. For recurrent infections, Gandhaka Rasayana, Mahalakshmi Lasarasa. For loose motions, Bilva, Tankana, Mayurapucha, Kutaja. For pain in the abdomen, Shankavati, Shigru, Amapachanavati, Chitrakadivati. Lot more to go. Many, you have plenty, hundred thousands of medicines in Ayurveda which could act on the symptoms which are caused due to cancer, due to radiotherapy, chemotherapy, post-surgery. Pain and pancreas and renal colic, you use Katuki, Rohitaka, Shamaka, all these. These are general small herbs which are very much available in India. You find them everywhere. These herbs has to be, prescribed in a proper format. You will have to go meet an Ayurvedic doctor who could prescribe you a lot more of permutations and combinations which they could do with these indigenous herbs. In headaches, Patyadi Kvata, Navajivana Rasa, Shirashuladi Vajra Rasa. In jaundice, Falatrikadi Kvata, Katuki, Trifala, Bijapuraka, Trikatu. In epistaxis bleeding, Pravala Panchamrita, Vasa Grutha. In bone pain, Ashwagandha Taila, Guggulu, Abha, Madhumandura. All these are few drugs which could be used. So now I have listed out few herbal and herbomineral formulation which could be given as co-therapy during radio and chemo. like Trifala Rasayana, the most famous Chavanprasha, Amalaki Rasayana, Amrita Rasayana, Brahma Rasayana, Kamadugdha Rasa, Lakshmi Vilasa Rasa, Makaradvajavati, Mukta Panchamrita Rasayana, Nari Kalyanapaka, Navajivana Rasa, Navaratna Rasa, Navaratna Kalpa Amrita. So here, even these precious stones, which we generally use for ornaments, even that is a medicine. The basma or the incinerated part of that diamond, emerald, etc., are very, very, they are medically so very good. Panchamrita Rasa, Smriti Sagara Rasa, Suvarna Vasanta Malati. I was mentioning about the nanoparticle of gold. Gold is again a good immunomodulator. So all these medicines which has gold in it is also very effective on the management of cancer. Vasanta Kusmakara Rasa, Visha Rasayana, Bruhat Vangeshwara Rasa, Chandanadi powder, etc. So now I'm coming to the end of my session. So preventing gynecological cancers. How can we prevent gynecological cancers? So here basically I would be highlighting on how we lead a healthy lifestyle to prevent cancer. That is during and after menopause is no different. The following measures will help you reduce your risk of cancer. Like take part in the cervical and breast screening programs provided. So generally, there are camps where we do cervical screening, breast mammography. So you will have to take part. The woman should be motivated to take part in each screening program. Exercise, very, very, very important. Why? Because the obesity is again a leading risk factor for various gynecological cancers. So exercise is very important. Eating a healthy diet. Try to avoid junk as much as possible. I am not advocating do not eat junk. I know do not eat junk could not be a right word to tell now, but try to limit your junk. Initially, you start limiting your junk, the next generation of yours will also limit. The further generation might not know what junk is. That is how we will have to now bring our lifestyle to. Very important for women is try to avoid smoking. Okay, so if it is very good if you don't smoke, but sometimes if you're addicted, try avoiding it as much as possible if you want to have a healthy life. If not, it's up to you. Maintain a healthy body weight. And a take-home message which I could give you all is better to screen and prevent than to diagnose and cure. So you know how do you prevent them? By screening, etc. First, basically you prevent, then go for screenings. That is secondary prevention, primary prevention, and secondary prevention. This is much better than getting diagnosed and going for cure, which is again where you need all that palliative care. So the main motto is to add years to life and to add life to years. So my sincere acknowledgements to Dr. Amit Singh, Dr. Satyam Tripathi, Dr. V.N.K. Usha, Dr. Onkar V. Hanshi, and Ms. Fiona, and Madam Millie also.
Thank you, Dr. Shreyas.
Thank you so much.
On the line here, we have about 3 minutes to go. Dr. Shreyas, what is your say on the Rutumaticharya being an etiological factor of gynecarcinoma by Dr. Sharada?
Okay, very nice question, Dr. Sharada. So basically, I guess Dr. Sharada is an Ayurvedic doctor asking about Rutumaticharya. So Rutumaticharya is a menstrual regimen. Okay, so it is a way of life which was mentioned in our ancient classics, like how a woman during her menstruation had to follow a lifestyle. So basically, during those time, she was generally not allowed to do any work. She was given a place where she could sit and relax. That was the intention, not to separate her. The intention was she wanted some time for herself, so that there is some physiology which is happening where she is excreting the blood. So there is menstrual blood which is going, and if she starts working, there could be more stress Because we know that menstruation to happen normally, we need hypothalamo pituitary ovarian endometrial axis, HPOE, all together. A lot of work, household work, etc. There could be action on the hypothalamus brain, which could signal some other not a proper feedback. Thereby, the stress, etc., could alter her menstrual patterns. Once the menstrual patterns are altered, it could cause menstrual abnormalities, according to Ayurveda. So probably that one. So she has to maintain normal, like she should not be under stress. This is one of the Rutumati Paricharya. Try to avoid as much as stress as much as possible. Do pranayama, have good, do more oxygen, which could maintain your stress levels there. And there is also mentioning about the food what she had to take. So in class 6 they mention havishya bhojanam. She was given only bland diet or sweet diet, which could only give her proper nourishment. There were no much spicy, no much oily items which was given. And she was always offered with a earthen pot, earthen plate, or a leaf which had more amount of nature in it. So the stainless steel, the porcelain, glass, utensils are condemned. So basically, you have to be more in tune with the nature. So she was given the leaf and also the earthen plates, were mud plates, through which she could have her meals, and it was very limited meals. So these are few regimens, if was followed, and with these regimens, some probably mode of lifestyle was there, good lifestyle. So therefore, this Rutumati Charya, which is a forgotten concept, has to come into light again. Why? Because nowadays we do not find most of the women practicing it actually. So here during menstruation, we find, I know that we are not telling women not to sit at home, like something like that. It is like we are telling them the facts which Ayurveda has told, that you also need some time. You take some time in your whole month and relax during that time. So that is the main concept. And there are lots of concepts. And I start talking about Rutumati Charya, probably I would need another 1 hour where I could give you the scientific validations for that. So I guess Rutumati Charya should be brought into practice to prevent gynecological cancers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shreyas. It's very interesting and very educational session. And I would like to thank to all the attendees, and have a great night. And thank you. Namaste, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Have a very good night. Thank you.